Welcome to the So Damn Worthy podcast. I am your host, Naili. So join me and my guests as we share our stories, experiences, and knowledge with the intention of increasing your self-worth so that you can finally recognize that you are so damn worthy. Welcome back to the So Damn Worthy podcast. Today I'm joined by Alison. Alison, welcome to the So Damn Worthy podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be on your podcast today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. So, Alison, if you could just give us a little bit about yourself, that would be amazing.
Yes, I'm a registered nutritional therapist. I've been working in the health and wellness industry for over 30 years. I started my career as an esthetician, working with female skin health. And the reason that was because when I was young, I suffered from acne as a teenager, and it was really difficult. And it really knocks your confidence. And I wanted to know why this was happening. Want to know the reasons behind something. I didn't really want to eat, take medication. So I started looking at why this was happening, and that really stimulated me into becoming an esthetician and specialising in female hormonal skin problems. Which, when we come into perimenopause and menopause, we can suddenly start developing acne like we did when we were a teenager, or, other issues with the skin. So I really focused on that. And then very soon I came to realise that, you can't just work from the outside, you also have to work from the inside with nutrition. And that's when I went back to university and studied nutritional science. And ever since then, I've been focusing on female perimenopausal, menopausal health, because it can be a very difficult time for a lot of women, and they really need the support. And there's so much you can do with nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset during this time period. And I think as well, as I was growing up, I saw my mother and her friends really suffering through this time period, and no one really spoke about it. There's a bit of a stigma attached to it that, oh no, brush it under the carpet, we don't talk about things like that. But they were really suffering and they never really got any help.
So with that, do you feel like people brushed it under the carpet because they didn't have the knowledge as to what it was properly, or was it just something that was shunned upon and just purposely ignored? Or do you think it was kind of like we don't know what it is, it can't be as bad as you think it is?
I think it's like a combination of both, because the knowledge obviously is a really important thing. And I think that, even now women don't truly understand what perimenopause is, really. And I think, I'm talking years ago when my mother was going through it. I think she didn't maybe understand it fully, but there's also this kind of, there's a stigma attached to it, because it's kind of the end. I don't mean the ending, but you're losing your fertility. Yeah. You're losing your ability to produce children, and it's more of I think females maybe feel that they're not as feminine, or they're losing a big part of themselves, which it shouldn't be like that, because it's a totally natural process. Every single woman will go through it. It's not a disease. So I think it's of both things really that were happening there, that it's not celebrated. Like puberty is very positive, isn't it? It's the new start, and you're young, and I think, and it's also, we're quite fixated with age, aren't we, in society, and it's kind of an aging process. So I think there's a lot of things that come into play, that the reason why we don't really talk about it as much as we should.
Yeah, I've definitely heard my mum say things like, oh, I'm going through menopause because I'm old. Or when she speaks about it with her friends, that the age definitely comes into it. And I'm like, you're not old. You're just going through menopause. It doesn't mean that you're old. It's not. What is old, first of all? That's a whole nother conversation. But literally, it's just like the age always gets dragged back into it when you're talking about menopause. And I know that there are some women that can have early onset menopause, if I'm saying that correctly. But there are some women that go through it prematurely as well. So I don't always think, or this is just my personal opinion, I don't really know if it's always connected with age. But yeah, I definitely think it's kind of looked upon in a different kind of light because of that stim around, when you go through menopause, it means you're definitely coming, like you said, to an end of some sort. It's like, oh, it's a bit of a dreary kind of moment when it's put up in a conversation, and it shouldn't be that way at all. It's like, okay, it's the next stage of life. It's just, it's natural. It's a bit like when we were younger, when I was younger and I go through like periods, it was a thing for girls. Like if you're on your period, it was like, oh, you're dirty. And now it's like you're going through menopause, oh, you're old. And it's like, oh, come on.
No, it's so true. I totally agree with you. And it's like, it should be thought of as a new beginning, because there are, it gives you like a sense of freedom. You haven't got to worry about having periods anymore. You can't get pregnant. It's another phase of your life that should be celebrated. And that I agree with you with the age thing. There are very difficult for some women that go into early onset menopause, and that can be due to many different factors. But that is something completely different, because that can happen when you're much younger and you can't have children, etc. But then the natural aging process that we go through, everyone will go through. And women, as we get older, we're fantastic. We've got so much knowledge, and we're carers, and we should be celebrated.
I agree. Hear, hear. So for those of you that are listening and wondering, like, what is the topic today? Today our topic is how to harness your hormones and regain your sparkle and self-worth during menopausal years. So let's just dive straight into my list of questions. First, how important are hormones to women? Because I think a lot of people know that we have hormones in our body, and they're like, okay, well, hormones are fluctuating. And I hear in conversations sometimes, like my friends will be like, oh, I'm just hormonal, and we throw out the word, but like people don't fully understand the importance and the role, the scale of the role that hormones play within women. So can you just kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis of basically the importance of hormones for women?
Yeah, great question. I mean, hormones they are so crucial, and you really see that. I mean, estrogen, which is a female sex hormone, when that starts to decline and fluctuate, you see the effect that it has on the body during perimenopause, which is the first stage. But what hormones actually are, they're like chemical messengers.
Yeah.
So they're messengers that tell your body. I mean, we have, as well as our female sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, we have lots of other hormones. We have stress hormones. There's so many different sorts of hormones that we need for all different bodily functions, so that they're messengers. And estrogen, if we take that, because that's like one of the key ones during menopause, we have estrogen receptors all over our body. So it's not so surprising when the levels start to fluctuate and decline. It virtually affects every system of the body, because some of the areas that we really need to look at when we come into perimenopause and the dip in the hormones are things like bone health, heart health, brain health, gut health, because all of these are affected by the lowering levels of estrogen, because estrogen is needed in all these areas to keep us healthy. Bone health is a good example. It's needed to keep our bones strong. And research shows as we come into menopause, women are more likely to, or have a higher risk of developing osteoporosis. So there's so many things that come into play, and they are just so crucial, hormones. Really, really crucial. That they trigger off when your levels decline. It triggers off all these menopausal symptoms that everyone experiences differently, but things like hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, okay, you can't blame it all on the hormones, but they do play a big factor in all those things that happen. So that they're really chemical messages that are crucial for all our bodily systems.
That's really interesting, and I think a lot of people overlook the importance of hormones, right? Because we hear about them, we know about them, we know they're a thing that moves throughout our body and stuff like that, but I don't think people really connect how detrimental your hormones being off balance can play. So I've got polycystic ovaries and fibroids, and it's, sorry, not polycystic ovaries, endometriosis. And when my hormones are off, it's like a World War III. It's going all up in my body. It's a whole mess. So when they're in balance, we're all good, and when they're off, it's just like it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And people, I think a lot of women, I think because women have been told you're just emotional for so long, we've overlooked that maybe it's like a hormone imbalance, or maybe there's something to do with a hormones that will be off. Yes, like you said before, we can't blame everything on hormones, but I definitely think they do play a huge part in the way that we kind of live our day-to-day life. And I think, you know, if anything feels wrong, I would always just say go to your GP or doctor, check it out, have that open conversation with them. Obviously we link everything back to self-worth on our podcast. So how important would you say having self-worth is?
During perimenopause and menopause, I mean, you really have to have self-worth and understand that you have to prioritize yourself, and realize that, you know, this time in your life you really need to give yourself a little bit of extra care, and realize that you are amazing and you're not old, and, you know, this is a totally natural process, and really understanding what is happening, so you can give yourself the time, you know, that you're worth, really, because you just have to look after yourself a little bit extra. And I think sometimes people feel guilty about doing that, don't they? Women tend to put themselves at the bottom of the list. But, you know, looking after your health and feeling good is crucial. So it's really worth putting the time in and finding things that you can do that make you feel better, and realizing that it's actually okay to put yourself at the top of the list, and have self-compassion for what you're going through. Don't try and fight it, you know, understand what's happening, and give yourself the time that you need to do that.
Amazing. So we've dived into this a little bit, but I want to kind of get into it a bit more in depth. So can you explain what is menopause, and then how exactly can going through menopause kind of affect your self-worth?
Yeah, the menopause is divided. Well, really, menopause is one of the stages. We all use the word menopause, but it starts with perimenopause. You've got perimenopause, menopause, and then postmenopause. They're the three stages. And what perimenopause is, that is the beginning of you know, your decline in estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And that's when you can start noticing these symptoms. And it's not that the estrogen levels are going down. It can mean in the beginning that they're just fluctuating. Like we were saying earlier, you know, your hormones are all over the place. It could just make you feel crazy. And this is why perimenopause triggers off these symptoms. You know, there's over 40 different symptoms that women can experience. And then as your levels fluctuate, they will gradually start to decline. And then we go into the stage which is called menopause. And it basically, the name meno is menstruation, and pause is pause, it's the stopping of menstruation. And menopause, really, all that means is when you haven't had a menstruation for a year, you are then in menopause. So it's really, if you haven't had a period for example, 8 months, and then you have one, then you're still in perimenopause. You have to have not menstruated for a year, and then you are in what we call menopause. And then all the years after that, you're in postmenopause, which means that, you know, you aren't producing, you're not fertile anymore. Your body still produces a small amount of estrogen from the adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, but, you know, you're not producing as much estrogen and progesterone as you were when you were fertile. So, you know, they're the processes of menopause, really, which I think it's good to explain that, because a lot of people don't fully understand the different, you know, stages and what happens.
I mean, I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because I didn't. I was one of those people that were just like, menopause, full stop. And I thought it was like That was it. I didn't realize there were like 3 different stages, and it's very interesting to know that you don't have a period for a year, and then you know that you're officially going through the state. I didn't realize that at all. I thought it was just more like hot flushes and mood swings and fatigue, and I was like, menopause. So this is very educational for me right now, and I'm really appreciating this conversation. So how do you feel like, obviously that can definitely have a knock-on effect on women's self-worth, and there's definitely a dip in that self-worth that can take place during those stages. What kind of barriers do you feel like women can expect to face when they're going through this journey? Because obviously we want to increase our self-worth, we're looking to kind of take care of ourselves more. I think during that period, I definitely would say that, I'm sure you can probably agree, is women need to be a bit more gentle and respectful and kind to themselves during that stage as well, because I know my mum can be quite critical when she's going through things like menopause as well. So what kind of barriers would you say women can expect to face during this phase?
Yeah, menopause, I mean, there's many areas that it affects, but when it comes to self-worth and looking after yourself and how you feel, it can affect you. It can really knock your confidence, and it can make somebody that is relatively calm can suddenly become anxious. It really affects you mentally. Your concentration, brain fog. I mean, I'm going through perimenopause myself, and the brain fog and lack of concentration can be really difficult. And if you're maybe suffering from confidence issues before, it can really knock your self-worth. I mean, menopause can trigger off depression. Obviously you would need to go and talk to a doctor if you're suffering from depression, but it can really knock your self-worth because you suddenly start questioning yourself. And again, this is down to the hormonal changes, because our estrogen is needed for brain health and production of all our what we call our happy hormones, like your dopamine and oxytocin. So when the estrogen levels start to decline, the production of these happy hormones can be disrupted. So you can really start questioning yourself. And I think the main thing to do is to understand what's happening to you and realizing that you are worthy of being, doing things, supporting yourself, and not get it going down that spiral of negativity, which is easy to do because you don't feel as good, you've got no confidence, and you maybe don't feel like going out and meeting people and being social. So it can become a negative spiral. But I think knowledge is a powerful thing, and if you understand what is going on, and this brain fog or lack of confidence is due to this phase I'm going through in my life, it makes it easier to deal with.
I love that so much. I think I agree 1000%. I think identifying what the actual problem is, because a lot of the time it's just put down to like, oh, I'm having a bad day or I'm going crazy, as opposed to like, oh, it's actually menopause. So I definitely feel like we need to like identify what the issue is. So once, say, your clients come to you and they said, okay, Alison, I figured out what it is, or they've had that conversation with you and you've actually gone, actually, this is what the problem is. What are the next steps from there? So what are the fundamental kind of tips, or what's the kind of plan from there to kind of help them rebuild that self-worth, or kind of just manage the menopause from there on?
Yeah, I mean, I work with my clients on a one-to-one basis. So I really, need to know what they need, their goals, etc., because everybody is different. And then once I've got that information and done a full health questionnaire, so I get all the information from them, we then put in place nutritional, lifestyle and mindset programs to really help boost their self-worth. And nutritionally wise, you can really feel so much better if you're eating the correct foods. And also finding out, everyone's so different, that the reason that you're feeling unwell or having migraines, for example, or whatever it is, could be to do with gut health. There could be something going on in the gut. It could be due to deficiencies of minerals and vitamins. It could be thyroid gland, which is like the motor of the body. So it's really getting to the root cause and finding out what is going on, and then putting a program together specifically for that person. And what is so crucial to really help people improve their health and their self-worth is to give them the support. Because it's very easy for someone to say, okay, you need to do this and this and this, but actually putting it in place is really difficult. It's very difficult to change habits. We're very motivated in the beginning, and we're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and you maybe do it for a few weeks, and then very, very easily you just slip back into your bad habits. I'm really there to motivate them, and they have to be accountable to me. So we talk every week. So we chat about it, and if they've had any lapses or whatever, we discuss it and move forward in a positive way. So it's realistic health programs is what I would apply. But we all have a life, and I'm not a believer in doing things that aren't realistic, because we're all busy. It has to be things that you can implement into your life easily.
I love that so much. This is why like coaches are so important. And I know you're a lot more than a coach, but it's just like, it's that accountability partner, having someone to be like, okay, this is how we can do this. This is what your goal is. This is how I'm going to help you get to the end goal. But on that way, that journey, that gap in between is usually where a lot of people go, yeah, I can do this. And then they go, and it just falls off completely. And then it's like, no, forget that. I can pick up on Monday. Oh, next month. January's here. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's an inconsistency to changing habits, which I think a lot of people can relate to, especially when you're going through such a hormonal, it's like a physical change. It's more than just the mindset at that point. It's like it's a feeling. It's like, I'm tired all the time. I can't physically be bothered, or I can't physically find the energy to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm falling into depression, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. And I think it's amazing to have that support, because it's key. Like, it really, really is key to have that kind of, especially if it's external. I think I would definitely recommend having someone outside of your circle, like a friend or a family, having somebody outside of that circle, almost like a friendly stranger. It's nice to have that conversation with that someone, because it feels like a judgment-free space, especially when you're doing it with a professional as well. So thank you very much for your service.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. You can start putting in place today. I mean, one thing which is so simple that everybody should do that we don't do is drinking water. We all know we should drink water, and that has such an effect on, for example, your brain. If you're finding it hard to concentrate, it could mean that you're dehydrated. The brain is made up with 70% water. So if you're really not drinking like you should, and putting small things in place, like drinking more, avoiding processed, highly refined, sugary foods, which is been shown in research to trigger off hot flushes, etc. And really thinking about what you eat, being mindful of what you eat, and eating more whole foods that contain nutrients and vitamins, more nourishing foods. So think of nourishing your body rather than just eating highly processed foods which don't really nourish your body, because there's hardly any nutrients left in them.
Yeah, that's so true. I think people just go to like the quickest option, and sometimes the quickest option is takeout. And they're just like, oh, if I just order it, then I can still continue relaxing, and it just goes up at my front door, and I'm like, oh, perfect. But like the long-term effect of that, even sometimes the immediate effect, you might feel like absolute crap when you finished eating that, and it's just not worth it. Like, it's not worth it. Like, my household used to have this thing where we used to have like Chinese like twice a month, and that used to be our thing. We've now cut that down to like probably every 3 months, and it's like a treat situation, and it's just you feel a lot better. And I meal prep now, and I have my smoothies with my sea moss, and it's just like actively taking care of yourself, and also like knowing you're taking care of yourself. It almost feels like, oh, look at me, high fives to me. So I think it's just work your way up to it. And I definitely agree, like changing habits is one of the most underrated difficulties that people face in the daily day, like a daily basis, and I think one habit at a time. Do you have any tips for changing habits? Anything that you kind of tell your clients when they're going in for, you know, a lifestyle change? What do you kind of suggest to them for that?
Yeah, habit changing it's a very interesting thing, because it is difficult to do. And as like you were saying, it's just small things. Don't try and take on too much at once. Just, well, if we take drinking water, for example, you know, just try and implement that. Even if you're not drinking enough water, just be mindful of how much you're drinking. Maybe you don't even have to do it every day. Start off with twice a week. Because if you try and say, okay, you've got to drink 8 glasses of water a day for the next 2 weeks, people will start off doing it, and then their old habits kick in. But a way that's been shown to work is attaching the new habit to an old habit. So, for example, there's a good example, like when you wake up in the morning and you go downstairs, most people maybe have a coffee or a cup of tea, and that they put the kettle on. That is something that you do. Really, you don't think about it. But if you, for example, want to start drinking a glass of water in the morning, attach that habit to the old habit. So when you put the kettle on, drink the glass of water, because you are going to put the kettle on, because you've been doing that for years. And it's been shown that if you attach the habit to an old habit, it sticks. You have to do it for a while, but it will stick, because it kind of attaches itself to the old habit, and it becomes like one habit. Now, when I put the kettle on, I drink a glass of water before I have a cup of tea or coffee. So it's quite interesting. I mean, you think we brush our teeth, don't we, in the morning and the evening? I mean, that's a habit that everybody does automatically. We don't even think about it. So some people attach habits to brushing their teeth. You know, whatever it would be, if you wanted to, you know, do 5 minutes meditation before you brush your teeth, but have it in before or after the brushing the teeth, because that's a habit that you do. You're just trying to create the new habit attached to it. So that's actually been shown to work, and I've seen that in my clients that is really helpful.
I love that so much. But you heard it here, guys. If you want to change a habit, brush your teeth and then do like 5 squats. And then everything will change. I love that so much. That's really smart though, because it's just something that you wouldn't even think of doing, is it? Like, you just turn on the kettle and it's just like an automatic thing that you do. It's become like a ritual at this point, and you don't overthink it. You're not like, okay, today I'm going to go downstairs and turn on the kettle. You're just like, oh, you walk downstairs, whoop, kettle's on. And then I love the idea of just attaching drinking the water to that, or meditating 5 minutes before you brush your teeth. It's the small things that really make that big of a difference, and I just think that's amazing. So it doesn't take much to amaze me, by the way. I'm sure you've probably figured that out from this podcast. I'm like, anything small, I'm like, whoa, no way.
That's great that you're so so enthusiastic. That's wonderful. I love it.
Thank you very much. So, Alison, before we wrap up our podcast, I do 5 rapid questions with all of my guests. But before we get to the rapid questions, where can my audience find you?
The best way to contact me is via my website. That's www.alisonbladh, that's bladh.com. And I'm on all social media channels, Instagram, Twitter. If you look for under Alison Bladh, you'll find me there. On my website, I do have a very nice resources page. So if anyone wants to download any meal plans, I've got meal plans specifically and recipes for, you know, different stages of perimenopause and menopause, for hair health, skin health. You know, you can really get some recipe ideas of what will help boost your health during this time period.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I'll add everything in the description as well, so please make sure you go check out Alison's details. Cool. You ready for a rapid 5 questions?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay. First question. What do you hope to rediscover about yourself?
What do I would like to... Gosh, this isn't very rapid, is it?
That's fine. You know what? It gets everyone. Take your time with it, because I'm so here for this.
Rediscover. Yeah, when I was rediscovering, when I was a teenager, I was very horsey. I was very into horse riding, and that is definitely something that I would like to do and rediscover in later life, because I found that so relaxing with, you know, thinking about self-care and looking after yourself. So as far as rediscovering means something that you've already done, really, doesn't it? So yeah, I'd like to take up horse riding again.
That's amazing. I'm looking into horse riding too, so maybe we can do it together.
That sounds lovely.
Yes. Second question, what has life taught you so far?
Wow. Life's journey, I think, is fascinating, and you know, it teaches you. I learn every day from my clients and the experiences that I've had in life. And I think to summarize what my life's taught me is that you just I truly believe if you believe in yourself, you can achieve anything. Don't let life and barriers and other people get in the way of your dreams and what you want to do, because it's achievable. You just have to have a positive, open mind and really realize that life is so precious, that it's a gift, and we're only really here for a very short period of time. So just go for it. Go out there and experience life and have fun and be happy.
I love that so much. I felt that as well. I was like, oh, she's speaking to me. Okay, question 3. What does happiness mean to you?
Happiness to me means enjoying every part of your life, enjoying your being with your family, doing the things that you want to do, helping people. I get a lot of happiness out of what I do for my job, helping women and turning people's lives around for the better gives me great joy and happiness. I think it's happiness is down. It's you create your own happiness, don't you, really? And you create that by what you do and how you are as a person. I think we create our own happiness, and it's up to us to create that, really, in our lives, and try and be social interactions with other people make me happy as well. We're social creatures, humans, aren't we? So great questions.
Thank you very much. How do you quiet your negative inner dialogue?
I in general are quite a positive person, but of course we all have negative thoughts, and sometimes they can spiral out of control, especially in the middle of the night when you wake up. I think I try to be realistic and look at something negative and then think, okay, what has actually happened here? Why is this negative? And how can I move forward from this, rather than getting stuck in that negative spiral? I always try to look at a solution to a problem, no matter what's happened, really trying to think, okay, this has happened. I'm not going to dwell on it. How am I going to move forward from this, and put an action plan in place so you can actually do something that will help you move away from that negativity. So I suppose not allowing myself to spiral into like a negative situation, getting myself more on a positive reel by planning and really thinking about why am I being negative, or what has happened that's made this a negative situation. Because a lot of the time we blow things out of proportion, and really when you look at it, there's always a solution to a negative situation or something that you have in your mind.
I definitely agree. I'm the queen of blowing things out of proportion in my head. It will start off as like a sand grain, and by the end of it, it's the whole beach. I'm like, Maddie, to read it in. Come on now, read it back in. Yeah, it's just, it goes off. Last question. What advice would you give to women on their journey to rediscovering their self-worth?
Be kind to yourself and allow yourself self-care and time to look after yourself. Really putting yourself first for a change, which, you know, as we said earlier, a lot of women don't. And this is something that you certainly need to do in midlife. To really put yourself first and realize that you're worth it. And, you know, life's better if you put yourself first and look after yourself.
I love that. Alison, thank you so much for coming onto the So Damn Worthy podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's been so lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.